Hello and welcome to Goofy Foot Garage. I am Dave. Over my shoulder here is Fiona, my 1951 Ford F1 Restomod that's sitting on a 2000 Ford Explorer chassis. Trying to mate them together. So today my plan was to do some welding, weld the patch panels. As you can see, kind of the cowl right there of the F1 is kind of got a little panel in there between that and the firewall of the Explorer. I want to weld that in today. That's kind of my big goal. So if you see over my other shoulders, I have a couple welders. I have a green welder and I have a blue welder. The green welder is a Harbor Freight titanium unlimited 200 welder. It's like the multi-purpose welder. It's got the option for MIG welding, wire-fed flux core welding. It's also got the TIG welding option. It's got a TIG welding gun. And you can also do arc welding on it, like people call stick welding with this thing. So this is supposed to be like a great all-around welder. It's the only welder I've had. It's the only one I'm working with. The only problem is this welder and me are not getting along. I've tried running some test sample welds. I've been playing with it. I've been using some weld through primer that I picked up off of Max Auto. And I was trying to get some beads down before I start welding onto the trucks. I don't want to like start welding on that and have some issues and messing up the patch panels that I'm putting in there. So I tried running some test pass. Problem was, after putting the weld through primer on the base metal, I was having a real hard time with the welder to like penetrating the base metal, getting through it and causing a good weld. It was basically just pooling up on top of the weld or on top of the base metal, and it wasn't getting good penetration. So I started playing with the settings, and I went back to the factory settings, what the underneath the cover of the welder would say to do for the thickness of metal I was working with and the type of wire I was working with, the diameter of the wire. Still wasn't getting that penetration, wasn't getting into the metal. So I started dialing it up a little bit, changing things a little bit there for, and I also went from, in my garage I have 210 power and I also have 120. I tried both settings, both plugins, still wasn't getting the results I wanted, still was having a hard time. I wasn't even actually being able to melt through the base metal. I'm working right now with 18 gauge sheet metal here. Wasn't even able to penetrate through the metal. So I don't know if it was me or the welder. No idea. I mean, I looked at the gas, looked at everything. Might be cheap welding wire that I have. I bought some stuff off of Amazon. Might not have been the best idea, but I went with what the review said because I needed a lot of welding wire because there's going to be a lot of patch panels on here. So I bought like a 10-pound spool. I'm just not happy with the results. And I've looked around, talked to a couple people, and they're like, honestly, it might be the machine. You might need a better welder when it's going to, put out what you need and give you the results you're looking for. So ended up going with the Miller welder. I ended up finding some guy off of Craigslist, actually no, Facebook Marketplace, selling a brand new Miller 211 with cart and helmet for super cheap, well, cheap for a Miller. So I was like impressed with it. So I called the guy up, picked it up, no problem. He ended up getting it as a gift from his kids because he was an out-of-body guy. Ended up not using it. He ended up messing his back up, so it sat in his garage for a couple years and never used it, never did anything with it, and finally got the okay from his kids because it was a present to sell it. So he sold it to me. Again, I had a heck of a deal. I was very thankful for that. So I just got done setting it up, putting it together, putting it on the cart, got the gas hooked up. I don't have the wire in it yet, so that's my goal today, is put some wire through it, and I'm gonna use it. I don't know if you know, the Miller 211 has what they call like an auto set on it. There's a option to just on the dial to put like the thickness of the material you're welding and working with, and then the dial and for the wire diameter you're working with. Just put those two little settings on the dials, you should be good to go. And from what I hear, this is a very forgiving welder. It's a great welder for learning. It's also a great welder for the experienced welders. I've never heard anything bad about it. So hopefully this welder will help me out. So, and that's kind of my goal today, is get that all set up and working so I can finally start welding some patch panels in on Fiona here. So today I'm going to cut up some scrap metal, throw some weld through primer on a couple of them, see if I can actually get the weld to stick, get it into the base metal, go from there. And yeah, I guess we'll see how it goes, so stay tuned. All right, so I got some test strips cut. As you can see, I got 2 strips here with some holes in it, so I'm going to do some plug welding in the holes like that. It's kind of what I'm going to do on this panel up here. Along the top edge here, I have a 1-inch square tubing that I'm going to try to like drill some holes and like plug weld there. And then along this kind of angled section here, that's where the Explorer firewall ends, and that patch panel is going to begin. And there's like an inch lip on the bottom here So again, I'm gonna do some holes and then plug weld all the way along that hole, along that seam, sorry. And then I'm gonna seal that, and then watertight seal. But this top one, the top edge, I might actually end up doing a complete seam weld along with the cowl to this patch panel. Not quite sure yet. But on the cowl, you can see when I did the spot weld, I drilled out all the spot welds. So I drilled out all the spot welds when I took the old cowl off. So I'm gonna have to, you know, patch or plug weld all those ones. So that's all gonna get welded in. But yeah, it's hard to see, but there's a little flange back here. It's kind of cut off there, but there's a flange from the Explorer firewall to where this patch panel is gonna go. And I'm gonna do some plug welding on that. So that's where these samples are coming in. So I have two different plates. I have one that I'm actually gonna cover with the weld through primer, which is this stuff. I ended up getting it, like I said, from Mac Auto. I'm not quite sure how good this stuff is. I see a lot of people using the 3M stuff, but this is what I bought. I got it pretty cheap, it was on sale. So I'm gonna put that on one of these plates, and then on the back, on this bar, I'll probably put on there as well, because obviously I'm gonna have to put some primer on the back of that after before I weld it, because once I'm done welding it, I can't get back behind there to primer it. And then I cut some little test strips here that I'm gonna do. Half of them I'm gonna prime with the weld through primer, and the other half I'm gonna keep staying, you know, clean and not work with them, not primer them anyways. And start welding it together and see how well that goes. And up here was me playing around with the old crappy welder, that guy, which was the titanium 200. And again, like I was trying to do, I couldn't get it to even melt through the metal. I couldn't get the weld to go through the base metal. It was just kind of sticking up on top of it, and that piece has been primered with the weld through primer. And it was having a heck of a time getting that set up. So I'm like, screw it, try something new. So here we are. Miller 211 Millermatic. Just got the new spool of wire on there. I'm trying some Hobart, the 0.024 welding wire. So I'm gonna try that and go from there. So wish me luck. All right, so I can tell right away that this Millermatic 211 is so much better than that crappy little Harbor Freight one that I got. So yeah, these are just some test welds. I did some plug fill-in welds in these, because this panel looked just like this, had holes. Looks awesome. Then I did some spot welds. Spot welds look awesome. Just tacked another sheet on over there. Yeah, I think this Miller welder is gonna work out just great. All right, so I covered this parts with some weld through primer. Basically covered this last panel that I just did with weld through primer, and a couple of these section only on one side. So I'm gonna try to do like a lap weld, like this on top of it, and do some tack welds, do a lap weld there. And then this one I did do sprayed with the weld through primer on the back of it, and then on this, I think it's a 1-inch square bar or half-inch square bar. Either way, so I'm gonna try to do the plug welds again on this. So plug weld along the way. And then what I might do is I might take some more of these that have been primered and see if I can, again, lap weld them over here. Or I might butt weld them, I'm not sure. Either way, I might butt weld some over here too, so it's like primer on primer, and see how it works. But that's where I'm going, because that weld through primer, I'm going to use a lot of it, especially on the inside of this front cowl, because I can't get up on behind it when I'm welding it, or after I'm done welding it. So I'm just gonna do that. So gonna get this welder going. I have this, I actually took the settings off of the auto sets that they have, because there's an auto set mode. That's what it calls it. You get the little auto select, I guess. So you can dial this to the thickness of the material, which is on the outside of the gauge, or outside of the dial. And then over here, on the far right, it'll tell you the wire diameters, like there's 024, 030, and 035. You can either use the auto settings when that light will pop on, or you can just use the dial, and the dial will, you know, go from there. So I'm just going off the settings that are inside the cover here, because I did notice that was getting a little hot. So I'm gonna try setting it myself and see that, because that was done auto set. This is gonna be done by, you know, adjusting the knobs myself. So we'll see how that goes. All right, so I'm done playing around and doing some test welding. This Millermatic 211 is awesome. It's amazing. It's so much better than that cheap Harbor Freight Titanium 200 Unlimited. Just wasn't doing it. This thing did some spot welds over the weld through primer. Awesome, got great penetration, great heat. Then I did some like standard straight welds. The first one, I think the amperage was just a little bit too high, so I turned it down, did that one, awesome. I also welded on the back. That's the back side of one of my welds, so you can see the penetration, see the heat, it's doing pretty good. The plug welds, not the best. I think it was better before they were primered. So when it was unprimered underneath it with that weld through primer, got a little ugly. Really couldn't see the hole when I was welding, so I was trying to get a better view of it. So I went back and plugged a few of them in. And then I did some tack welding of a weld through primer one on to the sheet metal. Looked great, playing around. And then I decided to do like a fillet weld, and that was kind of fun. You can see, definitely seen some heat, some welding, some penetration of the heat in the metal. Yeah, on the back side, you can see it went through the weld through primer, which is awesome. Again, a bunch of other ones, you can see where the heat went through, where it's getting into the base metal. So yeah, that's pretty, I think that's pretty good. This Millermatic 211, amazing machine. So if you are looking for a welder, I would recommend the 211 Millermatic with the auto set. It's just, I mean, right now I think I have it set automatic, like where the auto sets won't be, or at the 18 gauge. And then I have it set over there for the 0.024 wire, which is when I'm running the Hobart 0.024, which is awesome. Great for 18 gauge, seems to be working pretty well. Even welding to that, I have this kind of bar. It's like a 1-inch square bar, probably a 11 gauge thickness. So, and that's doing pretty good. So anybody looking for a cheap Harbor Freight welder, let me know. That one's gonna be going bye-bye. So now what I'm gonna start doing is take that little patch panel out. I just have it sitting in there, clamped in there. Take it out, weld some or drill some plug holes to get welded to the Explorer chassis, and start welding this F1 cab to the Explorer, which would be awesome. So, all right guys, have a good one. I'll catch you later. All right, so now it's time to start really welding. So I got this patch panel here that goes right there between the F1 and the Ford Explorer cowl. You can see I drill a bunch of holes for plug holes, kind of like if you did like where the spot welds would be on the cowl. So what I'm gonna do is like plug weld those. And I did the weld through primer on the back of this, weld through primer on that square tube there, and then on that flange right there. So take this thing and then flip it over. Make a noise here, but it's gonna go in the car like that. So this is how it's gonna go, just like that. But I'm gonna tuck it up under there, and then once I get it in there and tack weld it in, then I will probably prime this side of it as well to keep it from rusting, and then start building the rest of these patch panels. So this one goes right in there underneath the fender. I'll clean that one up a little bit, obviously, before I get it ready to go. So yeah, so that's what my next step is. I'm gonna tuck that in, clamp it to the firewall, and finally make this F1 Explorer one solid pickup. And just like that, the panel is welded in. As you can see, I did those little plug welds. I'm telling you, man, that Miller welder, so much better than the Harbor Freight welder. So if you've got a choice between cheap Harbor Freight and like a really nice Millermatic, go with the Millermatic. I mean, just look at that. Beautiful welds. Nice little plug welds. You're gonna grind them down, make them flush. I have to clean up a little bit on the top because the holes I drilled were hitting into the lip of the cowl, so kind of melted that a little bit. But still, those plug holes, plug welds, so much better, so awesome. So now F1 cab welded to Explorer firewall, awesome. So happy about that. A little smoke in here because on the back side you see there's that seam sealer that was there, and I was welding into that, and that seam sealer was just catching on fire, and so I had to clean that up. So a little bit smoky in here. All right, so the next step is to clean up these edges where the side cowls are, and then the floor pan, fill in these little gaps. So that's the next step. So I'll probably be taking the front fenders off so I can get access to up in here. I'm probably gonna cut all this little panel out where the air conditioner and heater were, and probably recreate that somehow. I'm not quite sure, because I know obviously you can't put the I think this is where the air conditioner condenser sat. So it's gonna be kind of tough to put that back because it's obviously cut in half. So I've seen people tuck it up inside the cowl here, or up inside the fender actually even. But that's another project for another day. So right now, calling it a day. It's about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday. Got to clean up my messy garage, put stuff away, and plan on taking the front end off either tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's supposed to be like 95 degrees, and working in 95-degree weather sucks. So we'll see. But like I said, I do have this panel that I started building for in here. So that might be my next project, just getting this side done. Work on the driver's side, and then possibly work on the passenger side. So anyhow, that's where I'm at today. I'm so happy now that the F1 cab is actually part of the Explorer chassis. So this is all one truck now, one piece of metal, which is awesome. So there's my F1 Fiona. Guys, thanks for watching, man. Stay tuned for the next video. Hopefully my next video will be putting in those patch panels that I was talking about and going from there. Maybe next week or so I might be putting the extended cab back on here. So wait and see. Again, thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you guys later.